Thank you for joining us today to discuss the 835 enrollment change function of the WPS Secure Portal. My name is Karen Curtis. I will be your presenter. I am joined today by Tom Ryan. He is going to be monitoring the chat and helping with any issues that may arise. So I'd like to thank him for being here today. Now, my goal today is to help you learn more about how to submit and view electronic remittance advice enrollment or change request using the WPS Secure Portal. The information being presented today can be found in the portal user manual. Manual updates will be made if there are any changes to the current process. Now, the world of Medicare contains a lot of acronyms. I have created a list of those that you will see or hear during my presentation. Many of you may be aware of most, if not all of these, but I like to include them just in case we have someone who's new to Medicare, or maybe someone who works in a field or a practice where they haven't needed to know what all of these mean. If I mention any acronyms that you're not familiar with, you will have the slide for reference. Before we get too far into this function, I have a couple of things that I need to cover. If you are currently enrolled as an EDI provider with WPS and you are using a clearinghouse or a billing service, then receiving an ERA may be included in your service. To find out, you can visit the WPS EDI webpage. I've included a link on this slide, but I want to show you guys how to navigate just in case you don't have that, don't have a link to follow. So let's go out. Tom, can you verify that you can see our homepage?
Yes, I can see the website.
Great, thank you. Okay, so here on the WPS homepage, it doesn't matter what jurisdiction you pick. We're going to go down, and under the quick links, you'll see that we have EDI. So I'm going to click there. Now over to the left here, we have EDI and there's an arrow. There are a couple of ways to get there. You can click here on the Getting Started with Electronic Claim Filing. You can also choose the Medicare EDI button there and then go ahead and click Getting Started. Now under the Choose Your Claim Filing options, this is where you're going to go to enroll if you want to submit electronic claims to Medicare. So it does give a list of clearinghouses or billing services that have been approved by us, that we've already tested with them and have agreements with them. So it does give you a list. So if you choose this EDI Connections, it's going to bring you up. Let me make this a little bit bigger. It'll bring you up this spreadsheet. So if we look up here at the legend, it's going to show us that the letter Y means that an 835 remittance advice is included in your service. So all you would have to do is you're going to find the company that you use, then the jurisdiction your provider represents. So for example, if we looked at Advanced MD, this company provides services for Part B providers in Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and Michigan, as well as Part A providers in J5 National. But if we look across here, it only provides electronic remittance advices for Nebraska Part B providers. So this is something that if you want to see if you should be receiving them, you can go out there and take a look at this. Now, if you look out here and you find that you should be receiving ERAs, but you personally don't have access to them, that may be something that you'd want to talk about within your organization to see, you know, who's getting them, what the process is for getting these files, things like that. And next, let's talk about access to the portal. To access the 835 enrollment change function, you must be registered for the WPS Secure Net Access Portal, which is often referred to as SNAP or the portal. On the WPS website, when we were just out there, kind of in the middle of the page when it comes up as this big blue box, and it has fields where you can enter your user ID and password. Now, underneath those fields, you're going to see links for login help, portal registration, expired NPI administrator accounts, and the portal user manual. So here I've outlined in red the link that you would use to register as a portal user. To register, you will need your national provider number or NPI, your provider transaction access number or PTAN, and your provider tax identification number. Now, the portal has 3 levels of access. Eligibility users have access to their own account details, eligibility checks, MBI lookup, and customer service. These users would not have an option to submit an 835 enrollment change request. Standard users have access to all eligibility user functions along with access to non-administrative functions for claims, e-refunds, notices, things like that. Their home screen is going to contain a practice card like the one you see here on the left side of the slide. Now, MPI administrators have access to all standard user functions, plus the ability to manage other users' accounts. And their practice card is shown here on the right. So you can see that it just has that added function that's labeled users. Now, the function that we're covering today is at the bottom of the practice column, regardless of whether you are a standard user or an NPI administrator. So let's talk a little about remittance advices. A remittance advice is a document that's sent to providers and it explains how a submitted claim or an adjustment has processed. There are 2 ways that a remittance advice can be delivered. It can be provided in an electronic format or a paper format that is referred to as a standard paper remittance. The 2 formats are arranged differently, and there is data that appears on the ERA that is not available in the paper format. All MACs must have the ability to produce standard paper remittance advices for providers who are unable or choose not to receive the electronic format. Once a provider chooses to receive their remittance advice electronically, then that paper format will be suppressed after a certain length of time. So for institutional providers, which is like hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, once they switch over to that electronic format, then after 31 days, they're no longer going to receive those paper remittance advices. And for professional providers or suppliers, that time frame is going to be 45 days. Now, what type of information is provided on a remittance advice? Now, the ERA is telling us how a claim or an adjustment process. So it's going to provide you with the individual claim information, such as the claim number, patient name, Medicare number, and the date of service. Then there will be payment information for individual claims, such as allowed amounts, paid amounts, as well as deductible and coinsurance that was applied. The remittance advice will also provide check or EFT numbers and payments amounts. Now, for claims that are denied or rejected, you're going to find claim adjustment reason codes or remittance advice remarks codes, and that's going to provide additional information and details about the claim and why it was rejected or denied. There's also going to be group codes. That's a 2-digit or a 2-letter code, and that's going to identify who is financially responsible for any amounts that are denied or rejected. There may also be provider level adjustments, such as a refund for offset that it's not going to apply to a specific claim, but to the provider's payment as a whole. Now, we said before that Medicare has a lot of acronyms, but it also has a lot of names for the same thing. So there's quite a few names for remittance advices. I've listed some of the common ones here. So a lot of people just refer to it as, from what I've heard, is RA. We use that term a lot internally. Remit, I've heard that a lot internally. Now, in my experience, an explanation of benefits or an EOB always makes me think of what's sent to the beneficiary. But I have seen some resources that describe the remittance advice as an explanation of benefits for the provider, which I guess that does make sense since it explains all the payment. So now let's go into using the 835 enrollment change function. Now here you can see there are two functions that can be performed. If you choose the larger button that reads 835 enrollment change, that is going to give you the option of searching and viewing previous forms and messages that have been sent. If you click on the smaller button with the plus sign, that's going to allow you to create a message by opening the enrollment change form. The form is broken into sections and it's going to require that you enter provider information. And I have listed the different sections within the form, but we're going to go over those in a little bit more detail. So we're going to start with the smaller button with that plus sign. This is for message entries and it's used to enroll to receive an ERA or to change information. Now when the form opens, there's going to be a field with a drop down for you to select the MPI that you would like to enroll. The registrant name and registrant email should be auto-populated. Next, you're going to complete the provider information fields. This is going to include the provider's name and address. You can see there also is a field that you can enter for doing business as name. This could be used if the public-facing name that the facility or office uses differs from the registered business name that's used for legal and tax purposes. Because the field does not have an asterisk, it is not required that you enter a name. Now, while we are on this slide, I'd like to point out that in the upper right corner of the form, there are options to clear the form or to cancel. Now, the next section is the provider identifier's information. You will be given the option to either enter your tax identification number or employer identification number. Choosing the EIN is only going to change the information entered in that first box. So the remaining boxes are going to remain the same. So the way you see it right now, it says tax identification number. If I click the circle before the employer identification number, that first box, the name changes to employer identification number. That's it. The bottom box will require you to enter your trading partner ID. Provider contact information comes next, and all of the fields except extension are required to be populated. You would enter your first and last name along with your title. Then you would provide your phone number and your email address. Now here in the electronic remittance advice information section is where you are going to tell us the date that you would like to receive your ERAs. The last section on the form is for entering information if you use a clearinghouse. Now, while none of these fields are required, it could be helpful to let our staff know which clearinghouse you use. That case, if there's any issues or any questions come up, that information is already here with us. On the lower right corner, you're going to see another option to clear the form, or you can choose to review if you would like to continue the process. After reviewing the information, you can choose to edit any of the data. If everything looks good, then you're going to go ahead and you're going to submit the form. Once you submit the form, you're going to receive a confirmation message with the details of your inquiry. The form that you completed will be attached in the generated forms section. In the upper right corner, you can print the confirmation message, you can start another request, or you can simply select Done to exit. Now you can also review the request that you have sent by choosing the larger button that is labeled 835 Enrollment Change. Now here, you're going to find previously submitted requests. Searches can be refined by entering information into the fields at the top of the screen. You can enter the tracking number that was given to you in the confirmation message that we just looked at earlier. If you have a specific date range that you are looking for, those can also be entered. The status field can be left blank, but you can also choose the drop-down box to select messages that were sent or that were not accepted. If you have access to more than one MPI or provider number, then those fields could also be used to narrow your results. There's also a small box to the right of the PTAN field where you can select My Submissions Only. Now you would then select Search in the upper right corner, and you're also going to find options to clear the fields or cancel the message search. If your search returns multiple results, then the filter box can be used to narrow those search results even more. Now, search results will be listed showing the tracking number, the status, PTAN, last activity, and in the action column, there's going to be an icon that looks like an eye, and this is going to allow you to view the message. So if I click on that icon, it's going to bring up this screen right here. Here you can see all the provider and contact information that was entered during the message entry. There's going to be a link to any forms that were generated from the message. At the bottom, you're going to see a field for messages. Now, I only have access to the test environment, so many of the examples that I can see that's blank, but there could be messages that are from the EDI department that would be put in there. In the upper right corner, you will see options to print the 835 form details. You can go back to the search results, you can perform a new search, or you can select Done to go back to your home page. Now, I've provided some resources that should help you through the process. The first link is the WPS EDI webpage. This is where we went at the beginning of the presentation where I showed you like how to check if your clearinghouse or if your billing service is already should be sending you those 835 remittance advices. The second link is to the portal user manual section. On the ERA enrollment requests or changes. This kind of walks you through the steps. We can take a look at this real quick. So this is going to walk you through the steps of entering that information. The last resource here is the Medicare remittance advice. This is a WPS resource. Now here you can find additional information on both electronic and paper RAs. There's information on PC print, which allows you to view and print electronic remittance advices. There's also links to the PC print user guide, the EDI website, and then if we scroll down here, there's also contact information for EDI. And the reason that I want to point this out is that while this form is being submitted through the portal, it is actually a function of our EDI department. So if you have questions about filling out the form, or if you have any questions about receiving electronic remittance advices, then our EDI department would be the who would handle those questions. If we do scroll down a little bit more, it talks about how you can receive duplicate remittance advices. It goes through the different ways to request one. You can do it through the portal, through IVR. Now, there are some notes after the portal and the IVR, which tells you when there's a situation that a duplicate remittance advice cannot be sent. If you want a duplicate paper remittance advice, it provides you a link for customer service. That would be how those would be handled. So that's just something else, like you can learn more about them, but it also gives you a lot of resources. Now, I believe I answered all of the pre-submitted questions during the presentation, but I want to ask Tom if we've gotten any questions that have come through the chat.
Hi, Karen. We do not have anything in the chat.
And that's okay. This could be very new material you're being presented with. So it's very understandable if you don't have questions at this time. Now, when you disconnect from the webinar, you are going to be redirected to a CMS survey. I'm also going to have Tom add a link in the chat. And I really hope that you'll take a moment to provide feedback on how I did today. If you are watching this video as an encore, the link can be found in the description of the video. The redirect looks like what you see over here on the right. We don't have any control over how this appears, so we want you to know that it's not spam, it's nothing malicious. That's why we kind of show you what it's going to look like. All you have to do is click on the blue continue button and it's going to open up that survey. Now, the feedback that we received does lead to changes. Chapters have been added to our encore presentations in YouTube. These timestamps can be found in the description, and it not only gives you an overview of what's being covered in the webinar, but it also allows you to jump to points in that video that maybe interest you most. Training indicators were recently added to the description of our webinars to help you decide if the material applies to you. Now, although you can usually tell from the title, the training indicators can provide additional details, such as whether it's related to FIS or MCS, for example. We've also held 2 Medicare Education Expos based on suggestions for future education topics. We are planning a 3rd Medicare Education Expo to be held in January, so be sure to watch for details that'll be coming out soon. So I just wanted to give you some examples to show that we really do take what you say into account and we try to make changes that you ask for. Now, after disconnecting today, you should receive a thank you for attending email, and it will contain contact hours that can be submitted for continuing education units. If you joined only by phone, WebEx is not able to generate this email, so you will need to contact us. Now, in the chat, Tom will add a link to the education mailbox and what information is needed for us to send a certificate to you. Now, if you do think of any questions, those can be emailed for up to 7 days following today's event. That brings us to the end of today's presentation. On behalf of myself, Tom, and the Provider Outreach and Education team, I'd like to thank you for being here today, and I hope that you will join us for future events. You may now disconnect.